Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for joining me this evening. I've got a great stream with a great set of guests that I think you're really going to enjoy. So the Prudentialist and I joined a number of people this weekend at the Scyldings Conference for Nashville. It was a very good event, very interesting. Met a lot of people who I've known forever online, people like Charlemagne and the Distributist and Last Things and many others. Finally got to meet them in person and, of course, hang out with the Prudentialist as well. We're probably going to have some more people join us later on as the show kind of continues. But I thought today would just be a good time to go ahead and have a nice casual stream, kind of catch up with everybody, tell everybody kind of about what happened with the event, and maybe take some questions from the audience. But of course, Prudentialist, it's great to have you back on, man.
Yeah, it's like I just saw you yesterday, so it's good to be back on.
Yeah, well, we survived a tornado together, or pretty close. So we'll maybe tell that story.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that had a fun time on the way back. But yeah, no, it was really great to catch up with everybody. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit about what happened, our favorite parts about it, what we think is kind of good things that have come out of the event. Like I said, we'll probably have more people kind of joining us as time goes on, and then we'll take your questions. This is also kind of just serving as kind of a casual Ask Me Anything stream, as well as kind of an after action report for the Scyldings Conference. With that said, before we jump into everything, guys, we need to hear from today's sponsor. Are you a college student who feels isolated as Cthulhu swims ever leftward? The Intercollegiate Studies Institute is here to help. ISI offers programs and opportunities for conservative students across the country. ISI understands that conservatives and right-of-center students feel isolated on campus and that you're often fighting for your own reputation, dignity, and future. Through ISI, you can learn about what Russell Kirk called permanent things, the philosophical and political teachings that shaped and made Western civilization great. ISI also offers many opportunities to jumpstart your career. For example, Nate Hockman, who's been a guest on this show multiple times, got his start at National Review through ISI, and he's just one of many journalists that ISI has helped start their career. If you're a graduate student, ISI offers funding opportunities to sponsor the next generation of college professors. But most importantly, ISI offers college students a community of people that will help them grow. If you're a college student, ISI can help you start a student organization or a student newspaper or meet other like-minded students at various conferences and events. ISI is here to educate the next generation of great Americans. To learn more, check out isi.org. That's isi.org. You can click the link down in the description to learn more. All right, so for those who don't know, there was a conference in the Nashville area this weekend with the Scyldings event. It's put on by the Beowulf Foundation. And it's a great opportunity to meet many people who are kind of from our sphere. A lot of people who are often on this show get to interact with a lot. Again, I got to see all kinds of people that I've talked to for years. I've known. I feel I feel very friendly towards. Consider them friends. But kind of finally get to make those in-person connections, shake hands, break bread together. Good time was had by all. It was really great to meet a lot of people too. Not, there's of course the speakers who are creators and those kind of things, but it was also great to meet a lot of people who are in chat, who are often super chatting, those kind of things. People who I've seen around the channel for a very long time. I got to meet people like Narco Republican, who's been watching the channel since I had like 200 subscribers, and I was making a Magic Arena videos as my background for the things we were doing. So it's fun to meet a lot of people who have been kind of along for the ride for a long time, and get to put names with kind of faces or internet handles, I guess, with faces and everything. So that was very cool. But Prudentialist, were there any people that you were looking forward to meeting that you hadn't got to meet in real life yet?
Well, I had the pleasure of going and speaking at the first one that we had last year in February of 2022. It was very funny because every time that we seem to have these events, something happens in Russia. So the last year it was the days before the war, and then this whole Wagner thing happened while we were there, and everyone was talking about it. And it's just like, well, everyone's going to have to wait for takes until we get home, I suppose. But I was actually really pleasantly. I didn't know that Last Things was coming, so that was like a really pleasant surprise to get a tap on my shoulder. And it's like, hey, I'm Last Things, and I was like, oh, that's great, it's wonderful. But no, I mean, it's always good to see and hear from the people that listen that you consider colleagues or fellow travelers and things like that. And it's a warm sense of camaraderie to know that you aren't alone physically. Like, we can always see it by like the people that are watching it on chat or that are sending you questions and things like that. But it's a lot different when you get to shake their hand and buy them a drink or ask what they thought of the latest talk or what's going on in the world. So it was just a genuine pleasure to see people I had already met, but it had been like a year and some change. So it was like a nice way to have the gang back together again.
Yeah, I didn't get to go to it last year, and so it was definitely great to be able to participate this year and get to speak and everything. And it was really fantastic. We've got more conferences that I think are a little more based now. Things that are kind of looking in a new direction, looking at things like the new right. You're seeing things like NatCon now, but those are still pretty mainstream. It's still a lot of people who are talking to mainstream publications. This was good because it was really a lot of guys again from very much our neck of the woods. It really allowed you to kind of meet people that you had always seen on Twitter or seen in the stream chats of different events that you had always talked to on different unpopular opinion shows or something, but you actually got to see those people in person, and that was really fantastic. There was a lot of standout speeches too. I was blown away by the quality of speakers. I was familiar, of course, with a lot of people. Your speech was great. Dave the Distributus's speech was a home run. He did a fantastic job. Charlemagne's was great. There's a lot of people who I expected to carry in, but then there are people like George Bagby who just did a phenomenal job. Who I'd not heard kind of speak publicly before, and he really did an amazing job. There was the very tall gentleman who did the speech on the cannon with Nick Land. I don't know if you remember his.
Mr. Grant Brooks, yeah, he covered
Yes.
Nick Land's The Cannon Wars from
Yeah.
Compact Mag. It was a great talk.
Yeah, just a lot of people who I was maybe peripherally aware of, but I didn't know we're going to be kind of delivering some really hard hitting speeches, some really good talks, and so it was just a high quality throughout. I was very impressed.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good crop of many returning speakers from the previous year. You did have your heavy hitters like Dave the Distributus, Charlemagne, and Radical Liberation, Stephen Carson. And so just to also see the new crop of like fresh blood from the what's happened over the last year and a half and where the direction of our conversation is going. Like last year, everyone was kind of nervous to just see, well, we've never done this sort of thing before, so let's see how it goes. And by the end of the event last year, everyone was like, okay, we know why we're here. We know what we're doing. This isn't a social event. This is to have a serious conversation about where politically we need to go forward. And from here, everyone kind of slipped right back into that mode. Like, we know why we're here. We have a theme for what we're discussing. And this is how we're going to hash it out over the course of this, 2 days and 3 nights of discussion, which was very fruitful.
Yeah, it was also really nice to see the level of camaraderie. I was not there last year, so I didn't get to see kind of how some of this formed, but you could already tell how close many people had kind of become over that year. There were a lot. There was one couple that had gotten engaged. Funny enough, they're one of the two females, I guess, that was there last year. Ended up, finding a fiance. And so they were there. Everyone was very excited for them. It was really great to see some people coming around. Guys like Ryan Turnipseed and Bagby who had experienced cancellations and just the amount of support and the outpouring of kind of goodwill for them, and you could tell how much Ryan gave a very moving kind of just thank you to everyone who had kind of gathered around him and rallied around him and given him that moral support. So it was just really fantastic to see those friendships forming. The people who had spent some time together, maybe had been hesitant about seeing each other in real life. In the first event, really bonding, becoming friends, and building those kind of relationships that can only exist once you finally met in real life. Shaking the hand, broken the bread. Just really encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the best parts about it, right? Is to put names to faces and recognize that the things that we talk about over on streams and discussion can also translate into the real world quite easily, and that there are organizations such as the Beowulf Foundation and whatnot that are putting things really where sort of like they're trying to walk the walk now that everyone's sort of been talking the talk now for quite some time on the internet. And it's just like, well, we want to facilitate more people just making friends with like-minded political ideas. Do we want to make sure that, if you're out in the cities, there's probably someone that we know on the internet that is in your area, and that you can have friendships with those people and to do things that aren't necessarily politically related, but to, go hiking, bowling, visiting like national historical sites and whatnot. And so that was probably something that is the real mainstay takeaway from it all. But I mean, the discussions were focused around this concept of forging foundations. Like, it was very much of, we know why we're here to discuss, positive and negative visions going forward. What are those visions going to look like? What do we believe in? How can we affirm the ideas that we already have been talking about? And what does it really mean in sort of this world of hectic anarcho-tyranny, that how do we keep going forward, or how do we organize? And that was the myriad of discussion was held on that in the speeches.
Yeah, it was really nice to see that mix. You it's weird because I had never really spoken at a conference like this. I had not had that opportunity before. I'm used to, I was a teacher, so I'm used to kind of speaking in front of people. But when you go into these situations that some of these are going to be kind of motivational speeches. They're going to be there to raise people's spirits, and that's where speeches like yours and Dave's really rang in those did that, uplifted people. And then you had the speeches that I thought there were going to be more technical speeches, but I think mine was the only one doing the technical thing. I kind of felt bad because I was the one who decided to geek out while everybody else was doing very heartfelt speeches in many ways. And then we had a number of guys who did very practical ones. That was really refreshing. The number of guys who said, okay, this is how we're going to set up, businesses. This is how we're going to set up fraternal organizations. This is how we're going to set up mutual aid societies that help in times of need. This is how we're going to network socially. This is how we're going to, spiritually prepare ourselves, in a world that is very much against us. There are a lot of really kind of rubber meets the road speeches. It wasn't all just a bunch of people talking about theory. It was a lot of people explaining how this can be directly applicable, how we can rally around each other. That was really encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, there was a healthy mix of sort of the lofty idealism versus, well, not even just versus, because I think idealism also has to be translated into, well, how do you put ideas into practice? And I think everyone had a little bit of that. And I think that, everything that we've talked about, either you and I together or separately in our own work, was addressed. I mean, everything from like Carl Schmitt's political theology to practical business skills that would be necessary to hire people, references to other existing institutions that are helpful and friendly to this side, whether that be the Beowulf Foundation or here in the United States, new founding to make sure that you can get hired by people that aren't going to fire you because you think men are men and women are women. So it was an excellent way to sort of understand that, we can talk about these high-minded political ideals, but we can also translate them quite well into mechanics. And I mean, your PowerPoint presentation, speech, discussion, lecture did a really good job of that, sort of explaining that, like, what people call wokeness, it's not going away. It's this, general homogenizing sort of ideology that is going to be here for some time, because that's how you get power. And it's important for us to understand how things work mechanically so we can develop the tools, organizations, and systems to get around that or to facilitate power.
It was also really great. The Rad Libs were just absolutely lovely people. Like, of course, I've talked to Steven so many times online, and I always knew he's a great guy. But they really brought that kind of mentorship, kind of warm paternalistic aspect to everything. You could tell that everyone was really glad to see them. There was a number of other. You'd be surprised. There were a number of people. I wasn't the oldest person there. There was, in our sphere, I'm the old man. I'm the grandpa. But there were a number of people who were very excited about what is happening. kind of in these spheres with the younger people, with many of the Zoomers or millennials who are trying to build things, who are taking the issues seriously, who are putting in the work. They were very encouraged and they were very excited. Again, it was just nice to see kind of this cross section of, yeah, you have uh, Catholics and Orthodox and evangelicals, you had pagans, you had people from New England, we had people from Australia, we had people from the South, of course. We had people all the way from from the Pacific Northwest, but everybody's coming together. This cross section of ages and religions and things, but everybody has an understanding that we had, again, the theme of the event was forging a common foundation. And I think that everyone did that. I think, I know that sounds really cliche and simple, but I feel like that really did happen. You really saw a lot of bridges. It's very easy to get petty and put into your own little internet ghetto and have everybody argue over little doctrinal differences or strategic differences. But when you're standing there, you're shaking someone's hand, you realize that you share so much more with these people than you disagree with them with, and it becomes very easy to kind of cross those bridges and find a way forward that's really going to help everyone out.
Absolutely. I mean, that was the big thing that we took away from it yesterday or last year's event. And I was very happy to see that translate over. Is that if you're on Twitter, if you're you see people responding to other people with YouTube videos or essays or streams covering other people's content, like the content grind, or what people call like e-drama or whatever, that disappears out the window instantaneously the moment you shake their hand and you're here to actually work and do business. And that's like the real pleasant thing about it is that all that sort of troll gazing, that navel gazing on the internet, it very much is an online phenomenon. It's not, those type of people really don't exist in the real world. And if they do, like, that those are the narcissists that didn't like show up, or they decided to just tweet about it rather than come to the event itself. So it was a pleasure to know that despite very real differences in, say, backgrounds or socializations, religion or ideologies, that no, we actually can come together and work very quickly and efficiently to address the problems of modernity today.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right that there's that bit of a self-selection, bias in everyone showing up there. These are people who are committed. They're making the trip. They're people who are looking to work together, and so it really does filter out a lot of the drama, a lot of the hanger on type stuff. It's people who are serious. They're making the commitment. They're there to make a difference, and you can tell, when you're talking to people that everyone is there because they're taking it seriously. I mean, lots of fun, the people having a great time to be sure as well. But everyone's sitting down for the talks. Everybody's taking notes. Everyone wants to hear what everybody has to say. They're making those connections. We saw the Old Glory Club was a big function this year. They were a big part of the event, working on kind of that mutual aid and fraternal order type of option that allows people to get together, basket weave, build those that camaraderie, and allows them to do it locally in a local chapter that is still very specific and it's centered around the interests and needs of the community that it's in, but still has the ability to kind of work together in kind of a confederal way with each other, and so that you have kind of that structure when they need it. It's just really encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, this is where everyone is really getting to show what they've been working on, not just within their speeches, but also the organization and the need to actually make sure that there are tangible infrastructure on the ground that people can rely on and that they can use. I mean, yeah, the Old Glory Club was there. They had outlined their projects and plans for chapters that will allow people to have sort of that fraternity and to ensure that they can work together, whether it be, like preserving historical documents or being aware of like the history of their own state or chapter, and talking about how they can work on local issues that matter to them and know that they aren't alone, while also on the broader picture work with and learn from other organizations that can ensure if someone is canceled, or if we have someone who's been like one of our people that's been affected by natural disaster, we can take care of them, because that was a commonly held practice and tradition a century ago in this country, and we would like to bring it back. And I think that as we have kind of seen this sort of collapse of competency in our government, you're going to want to rely on those that you can trust and that you can rely on. And I think that was a really big hounding theme, not just out of the organizations that were present, but also the talks.
And it's also really great, obviously you guys, if you haven't been to one of these events, you're probably mostly just seeing content creators, right? Which is certainly part of the scene for sure. There's certainly content creators there. But a lot of people talking there weren't content creators at all. A lot of people in attendance weren't content creators at all. They're bringing very specific skills. You have businessmen, you have lawyers, you have finance guys, people who are excellent at organization, people who are, high level managers, people who know what they're doing, have life skills, bringing lots of different diverse talent sets to this thing. Because again, if you can make content, if that's where you're gifted, that's great, but that is but there's only so much that someone like I or Prudentialist can do for somebody who is running into a legal issue or needs employment or is trying to figure out a financial problem or figuring out what the best way is to raise and homeschool kids, right? Like there are all these other skill sets that are actually way more important than content creation to the building of a community. And it's nice that obviously we can put some of that stuff forward, but you don't really see it all in action. You don't really see how it's all fitting together and forming a real community until you end up in an event like this, where you really start seeing those different organizations, those different skill sets, those different meetings coming together and figuring out how you're going to take those steps forward. Again, if you're doing content creation, that's great. I would never discourage somebody if they feel like they're talented in that field, but just know there's so much more that's needed and often way more important. And that is happening. Like, again, you don't see those people because they're not on the stream. They're not, making a video essay. They don't have a Substack, but they are still doing incredibly important work that's really making a difference.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the nice things to see was the diversity of skill sets, not from the speakers or the people that you see online regularly, but just the regular attendees. I mean, everyone from computer programmers to homesteaders to search engine optimization and marketing people alongside, plumbers and tradesmen. It was all there, and people were recognizing that like everyone's got a role to play in the years ahead. When I think everyone is kind of on board with the agreement that like things will get worse before they get better, and you're going to want a good cadre of people that know how to take care of things when things are no longer being maintained by sovereign authority in the United States. So I mean that was a very pleasant thing to see, alongside the fact that those people who aren't the content creators asking questions with the speeches or asking like how can we get involved in things, illustrating that there are a lot more people that aren't just the commentariat class, not to dig at ourselves, but like there are people out there that are just like, well, these are things that I've done before in the past with like small businesses, and like who should we be targeting? And it's just like, well, those are the people that you really want on your side when push comes to shove. And so it was a pleasure to see diversity of skill set, but like also just the age range. You had plenty of people that were Steven's age or older than, you or Steven, just asking like, well, how do we get involved? Like, cause I've been just depressed with the Republican Party for like 40 years. And it's just like, well, welcome to the internet, like, it's nice that you're here. So we'll work on getting you involved. We'll print shirts and jackets. Don't you worry,
Yeah, it's really encouraging to see these guys who are kind of elder statesmen who have, that gravitas, that experience, that position of leadership possibly, or that potential for leadership. But like you said, they've been trapped in the Republican machine for years, or they've been, they've just been doing things or looking for opportunities and not really finding them. And then they see this group of kind of young guys getting together, motivated, have a new avenue, have a new outlook, and they're excited. They want to be involved. This is what they have been looking for. And so it was really nice to see the excitement in them, and that they were really enthused about kind of the get up and go and the ability to kind of look beyond the standard solutions and find new opportunities, and that they wanted to jump in on that and be involved and lend their support was just extremely encouraging, to be sure. So we've got a number of kind of just hellos and chats and everything that are stacking up. And guys, this is an Ask Me Anything episode, so most of this will kind of be just dedicated to talking to you guys. Like I said, I think we're gonna have some more people come in, but I'm not sure. There's a lot of travel. Like my flight was delayed by 3 hours. I know a bunch of people who had 5-hour or even 24-hour delays. kind of coming out of the event. I know Prudentialist had a pretty wild drive back, so we just had a lot of travel concerns, but I think everybody got home safe. But I'm not sure when or if people are going to be able to come in. But I did want to be able to kind of just have this opportunity for people who were at the event to kind of share their thoughts, or just chat at us while we're going, and then have an opportunity for you guys, just kind of a cozy stream to hang out for a little bit. But before we do that, obviously, I have the Prudentialist, and he is our international relations guy. And well, there were some international relations over the weekend that we didn't get to comment or kind of know about so much. So I know if you're still catching up, I don't want to push you too hard for a professional opinion, but I did want to just kind of get your reaction. So Russia, is it over? Are they back? What's going on?
I believe the not happening gang had the victory. It seems like they keep chalking up wins on the chalkboard there. I don't know. I saw the news, and I had a friend of mine who is in Russia message me, and he was just like, "Who would have thought that Tim Pool would be right about the South and the Civil War? Just happened to be in southern Russia." And then he messaged me later saying, like, "Actually, we're all safe. All things are fine now." So I was like, "Okay, good to know." All I could think about was that section from Machiavelli's The Prince about mercenaries, and how that's sort of the lindiest of all lindy concepts. So good to know. I will probably put out more, like, I'll probably examine it a little more, but I know that the Wagner PMC group, they've been sort of using their position as a private military organization to, talk about and criticize the Russian government with war. But when you're only taking up a small column of maybe like 5,000 or 6,000 men up to Rostov-on-Don, and then go back and then have the president of Russia say, like, you can join the Russian army or go to Belarus, like, we're not having this. So not good PR for the Russians in any way, shape, or form. And but this is also on the heels of what looks like a counteroffensive that did not bode well for the Ukrainians. But again, we were all kind of off our phones this weekend, so
Right.
these are literally just hot off the presses takes. You're not getting something that's researched here. But yes, people were asking me, like, you picked a heck of a weekend to not be paying attention to the news, and I was
Right.
like, good, like, I'm here for something else.
Yeah, sometimes it's great to unplug, and we barely got to look at the phone the whole time, which was great. But yeah, it turns out that the wheels didn't stop turning while we were at the event. Just for people who don't know, what is Wagner?
It seems to be just like a private military contract organization. I'm very reminded of Blackwater earlier in the days of the Iraq War, but whereas there's more of a coordination between, say, like the Russian military and this organization. And I mean, they have like a corporate headquarters in, I believe, Russia. And so it just seems that they're quite well on their way of being another force that doesn't require a larger mobilization of Russian military forces. And of course, that comes with its own issues, being sort of an entity that you don't see very often with respect to, power conflict between like traditional nation states. So it's interesting to see in 2023 sort of privatized military contractors that sort of work in conjunction with the state that is far more in the thick of it than, say, other parts of the Russian military. But I plan on doing a deep dive on them actually later this month. So I would just say stay tuned for that.
Absolutely, guys. Definitely make sure to check that out. All right, so we've got some super chats. We've got some people just talking about the event. I'll probably swing by. Guys, this is an AMA, so I mean, if you want a super chat, of course, always appreciated. But if you just have a general question that you want to drop in the chat as well, just make sure that you at me when you do that, so that I know that that question is for us. We'll get priority to the super chats, but we'll answer other questions as well. That's kind of the point here. Oh, look, we got a Red Hawk here. Let me go ahead and add him to the stream. Mr. Red Hawk, how are you doing?
I am well. I've been driving for 11 and a half hours. I have not even unpacked my car yet. I bring news from the front. So it's a pleasure to speak with you, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's good to hear from you again. I also just drove like 10 and a half hours, so I know how you feel.
Yeah, I just spent my time sitting in an airport, but still, that was very Very fun. But Red Hawk, first time I got to meet you there, were you at the event last year?
I was, yes.
What was your favorite part this year? Did you notice a change, maybe in the attitudes? Did you see anything, any improvements, different speakers? How did you feel about it?
I would definitely say that the energy in the last year's event in February of 2022 was definitely slightly different to the event that we just had over the weekend here, in that people were kind of walking on eggshells at the start of last year. They weren't quite sure, like, okay, am I actually with friends here? Like, where's the where's the Fed, of course, and all that nonsense.
Mhm.
But over the course of 36 hours, 48 hours, however long we were there for, people were, discussing all manner of topics, and internet drama just didn't seem to matter at all. People were sharing cigars, sharing drinks, sharing ideas. And immediately when we got to the event this year, we had I'd say maybe 60% repeats and 40% new people at the event this year. And those 60% that knew people from last year recognized them immediately. Everyone came up and embraced each other in hugs. Everyone was buying each other drinks. They were catching up, and it just seemed across the board, everybody just had improved like remarkably from last year. People had gotten engaged, people had started businesses, people had, developed new ideas or what have you. But it was just immediately, I recognize friends. I recognize we're all here. We're all serious. We're all in business. Let's get back to work exactly where we left off from last year. It was almost seamless, as if no time had passed at all.
Yeah, I hadn't been there last year, obviously, but I really got that feeling of just like a lot of personal and community W's. You could really feel a lot of people excited about all this progress that had been made, all this personal improvement, all of this professional improvement, all of these different organizations and projects that had advanced. There's just a big, a lot of optimism and a lot of excitement of kind of how well things had advanced given that year.
Yeah, absolutely true, for sure. The energy was just ecstatic. It was electric. I'm sure anybody in the chat who's there at the event is probably still working with their, post-event high, right now, and the hype and everything. And yeah, it's a fantastic time, and everybody should, absolutely come to next year's event. You absolutely will not regret it. I was walking around. I made it absolutely a personal point of mine to try and talk to as many people as possible. But the issue, and I'm sure you gentlemen experience this as well at these events, is everyone there is extremely intelligent, extremely well put together. And you just simply do not have, 130 hours at a conference to talk to each person for 1 hour, because you will end up talking to any one person for 1 hour, because they all have something to say. They all have something to contribute. They're all serious people. They all have their own skills to bring to, whatever foundations that we are trying to forge right now, whether it's businesses, mentorship, relationships and families. Everybody there, not just the content creators, has a very important part to play.
Yeah, I really felt that. I know what you're talking about. It felt, people who I didn't know, I had never interacted with, I was meeting for the first time, just immediately fall into really fascinating conversations for half an hour, not even realize the time had passed. It's like what college is supposed to be in theory. I guess, without all the pause. But yeah, but you just run into all these people who are all very accomplished, very intelligent, experts, and in so many areas, bringing up really interesting. I had so many people come up to me like, "Hey, I read this thing. Have you thought about this thinker? Have you gotten to this? Have you ever heard about the historical thing that connects to all of these things?" And I just constantly, like, okay, I got to take notes. Hold on, like, to make sure, because so many people are bringing up new ideas and are just thoroughly interesting. You're right. There's no way to have all the conversations you want to have, but I could definitely feel how exciting it was that kind of each person you run into, you could just organically have a fascinating conversation with, that's just adding something. And again, not just along those content creation lines, but with everyone just bringing, their own specialty, their own experience, that just kind of plugs into the whole picture and makes things work.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's always interesting to hear the different, stories that people have as to how they arrived at the event and the positions that they now currently hold. There were some people that were at the event this year that had just come across like populist delusion last year. And then there were some people who were, deep in this material for 5, 6, 7, some even like 10 years, so there's a wide range of people who are on, their, quote unquote red pill journey, as it were. But all around, fantastic event all across the board. The organizers did a fantastic job. Everyone was well taken care of. The rooms were fantastic. The venue was fantastic. The staff were great. Full marks, 10 out of 10 all across the board.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and start grabbing some remarks and some questions here, guys. Just feel free to jump in as we go. Like I said, this is real casual. This is just Cozy Friends stream. So we'll just go ahead and see what everybody was doing here. So Polly B says, Scyldings was amazing. It's worth making the sacrifice to attend, which I did. My only regret was that I didn't get to meet more people. Didn't talk to Auron personally, but I don't like to impose myself. Oh, you should have, man. I met so many people. It was so great. Especially, like I said, these people who I've seen in chat for years at this point, who are around when the channel was only a couple hundred, people. It was just really cool to finally put names with faces and to get to talk to these people. They were so kind, and they have, like I said, they all have their own stories of how they got there, how they had plugged in, how they had talked to their parents or their spouse or whatever about these ideas and how that had changed things. It was very cool to just hear every one of those stories in person. I thought that was really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, the countless number of conversations from people that had introduced themselves is like, hey, I was this person that's been commenting on your threads or your videos since like you started. It's nice to meet you. Like, it's always a great thing to finally see the people that are encouraging you to keep going or to suggest ideas or books and things like that. I had wrote down more literature recommendations that ever before. Like you go read through like Unqualified Reservations or whatever, and like you thought you have a book list then. Wait till there are like 40 or 50 guys telling you like you need to read this book, that book. Have you read this essay? Have you read this treatise? And it's like, okay, I'm going to write this down and hopefully add it to my never-ending and ever-growing list of books to read.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'll just get buried under that wave of books. Yeah,
indeed. In addition to the discussion on books, coming to these events, you get access to limited edition prints of Imperium Press books, as well as Mr. George Bagby setting up his own personal library bookstore at the event with hundreds of books, all of some of them were literature, some of them were nonfiction, some of them were about the Civil War, some about the Russian Revolution. There was a plethora of books, and I picked up a couple myself. I don't know if you gentlemen picked up any.
Same.
Yeah.
There were some books I did buy out of like the meme. Like I saw Human Smoke, and I was like, oh, Yarvin references that all the time. Like, I might as well get a physical copy of it because I hate e-reading. And Mr. Bagby was selling physical copies of books, and that's what I am. Is buy physical media, kids. That's the important thing.
Yeah, I picked up the abridged version of Decline of the West, which I'm looking forward to digging into because I've not read Spangler yet. So,
yeah, no, well worth your time. All right, let's see here. We've got Son of a Star for $2. Hey guys, great to meet you both this weekend. Well, thank you very much, man. Yeah, no, it was fantastic to meet everybody. Let's see here. We got Dugan Ashley for $5. Had a pleasure seeing the two of you along with everyone else over the weekend. Yep, absolutely. Great to see everybody. Just gonna grab some of these here. We had Cody Bassett who was there. Hello, gentlemen. It was wonderful having met you both. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's see. Here. You.
But yeah, like to echo Red Hawk's point, like even people that were just like in the comments section that we see, or even in chat right now, like every single one of those people have like their own like skill set or ideas, and they're just like, I'm too busy to make content, but like here's all the things that you should be looking at or considering it from this angle. And it does really illustrate, like at least in this corner of politics and the internet, that you really do have some of the smartest commenters and reply guys out there. And you too can make it. The world's richest man right now is a reply guy on Twitter. So like go out there, give us your feedback.
Yeah, Polly B here says mechanics HVAC guys, and I don't know if he's joking there or not, but seriously, I know there was a guy I met there who's a butcher, and they're still bringing like you said all these different references. They have their own careers, they're going their own ways, they're not in content creation or everything, but they're still exploring all of these ideas. They're still kind of just doing the work in the meantime, and they're bringing all these different encouraging ideas, all these different skill sets, and you need all these people. Absolutely. Like I said, there's the very encouraging thing was kind of how it wasn't dominated by content creators, and how great it was to have some very applicable, practical advice being brought by people, again, lawyers, finance guys, businessmen, just people who are established. They know what they're doing. They bring an essential quality to everything, and they're giving you, it's not all just Spengler and elite theory and everything. It's a lot of very much, okay, how do you go home and make your area better? How do you get together with people? How do you move this ball forward? It's not all theory. It's things that you can take right into your community and make a difference.
Absolutely.
We've got Christian Smitherman here for $5. Very encouraging to meet and hear from y'all this weekend. And the food was pretty good. Yeah, no, it was very nice. Everything was, the event was very well handled. Big ups to the Beowulf Society and Scyldings. The event was catered throughout, and everybody was well taken care of. Things were always on time. They managed to pack a ton of content and speakers and everything in there. So kudos to them, people putting that stuff together. It's often a thankless job, but they did a phenomenal job of making sure everything was good, even the food.
Yes.
Sean here, just dropping the Machiavelli wisdom about Russia. Let's see.
Kind of needed.
Deep voice, Auron. Yeah, no, I've just been talking all weekend, guys. So
yeah, absolutely. And the combination of being up until like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning because nobody wants to stop having conversations with people. We are all very sleep deprived, and our voices are very dry.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
I definitely ran into a lot of things where I'm like, all right, I'm going to turn in. And then someone's like, hey, have you read this? Hey, did you thought about this yet? Blah, blah, blah. And then I look at, the watch, and it's 2 hours later. And I'm like, oh, no, what happened? Didn't even realize it. Let's see here. Le Fromage for $10. Hey, fellas, if you could pick up one political group to absorb dialectically, i.e. Marxists, libertarians, etc., what would you pick? Love y'all's work. That's a very interesting question.
A political group to absorb dialectically. Well, I'm going to echo a point made by one of the event organizers. I'm pretty sure we have already absorbed dialectically the Marxists.
He did make that point to everybody over and over again.
If you're using the word superstructure and the base and things like that, you're sort of already within that sphere of things, which kind of makes sense because some of our favorite writers out there, like Nick Land or whatever, like you kind of have to know that stuff in order to understand him. And he's kind of gone on a pretty far different direction on the right these days. So I feel like we've done one of these, and we already have the libertarians. So I'm sure there's some far off group that we may not know about that'll be next on our horizon. Who knows?
Look, I definitely did not deliver a class analysis based on the global expansion of capital. That did not happen at the event. But no, I think, interesting. I don't know one group in particular. It's funny because I feel like many of these groups have always been flirting with kind of disaffected Marxists, right? Like that's kind of the Red Scare type crowd. Or what was the other podcast that kind of broke up?
What's left?
That one, and the Fed Post one. But I feel like those people have always been hovering around. And then, of course, we're always talking to libertarians. I've been on Tom Wood's show a bunch. I've been, Dave Smith. I mean, in some ways, radical liberation, I guess, kind of is still in those spheres. Those are a lot of the paleo libertarian guys, especially, have always still overlapped very much with this. So I think there's definitely a lot of that there. Let's see, we've got Florida Henry here for $20. Thank you very much. Coming from a conservative Southern Democrat farming family, I've come to the conclusion that Reaganism is a disaster that gave us all this power to corporations and a cult similar to socialists. Your opinion? Thanks. Zombie Reaganism is obviously a disaster, especially for the conservative movement still. People still try, you'll still see the National Review or other people go like, well, but Reagan wouldn't have agreed with this, as if that has any bearing on what's going on. But I think the biggest thing is a lot of people, and of course AA has talked about this, and he's absolutely right, that a lot of times, administrations like Reagan's are the opportunity to lock in the ratchet, to kind of lock in those gains that have been made by the left from the other side. And we've all talked about this a number of times. how, when the Democrats are in power, you get all the social aspects of liberalism, and when the Republicans are in power, you get all the kind of the business free market aspects of liberalism. But those are the only things that advance. And so obviously Reaganism very much along that free market side of things. Don't get me wrong, Reagan's probably still better than many of the alternatives that could have been in charge in that situation. But the constant need to reference him, the constant reverence, the inability to kind of look at what went wrong during those times, certainly a problem for the right for sure.
Yeah, we are not in the political paradigm of the 1980s, and I mean, thankfully, hindsight is 2020. And I think that one of the key aspects of Reaganism that you can definitely look at was sort of the accelerationism of sort of the managerial state. I mean, you can cut taxes, you can cut regulation, you can do X, Y, and Z, but there's also a lot of laws passed, signed, sealed, delivered that has sort of entrenched our own political backdrop for like what we might call political correctness a few years ago, or wokeness, or whatever term that you may want to use for it. Because I mean, he's also the example of signing like the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday into law, and so that constant Republican, political pandering to groups that will never vote for them. These are the sort of things that we see happen all the time. And so yeah, like the Reaganism that we keep trying to resurrect from like the National Review types is just, it's a part of the problem, and we need to stop venerating it.
Absolutely. Let's see. I know I'm not going to pronounce correctly how do we say this one?
Oh man, El Flemplar or Luthemplar.
Yes.
Okay. But yes, I know who it is. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. It was good meeting you for sure. Enjoyed the event a great deal, and seeing folks are real and not AI cyber demons. Well, let's not make our judgments yet. I could still be a computer algorithm. I've been accused of it before. What are your folks' favorite speakers and themes? Yeah, I already talked a little bit about this. Like I said, I really enjoyed. Of course, I feel like both Dave and Prudentialist gave kind of very encouraging speeches. Stephen's speech also very encouraging. I feel like Bagby's speech was a real sleeper hit. I didn't realize, I didn't really know what to expect, but his was very excellent. Again, the speech on kind of the canon, looking at Nick Land and the canon, the Western canon, also really good. A lot of them, though, like I said, they're very, the very consistent theme of very high quality speakers.
Yeah, I agree. My personal favorite was probably Not Me, Not Yous, about not falling into ideological purity, especially, the discussion around the event of forming a common foundation. Charlemagne's was very good. Bagby's will probably be the first one I reread when the event book comes out, because that one was, like you said, Auron, a very sleeper one for sure. But yeah, all the event speakers did a fantastic job, and every one of those speeches was top notch.
Yeah, I think Mr. Bagby's speech is probably will be the one that I reread. It's the same way. It was probably the best one to have a man who spent most of his career teaching a classical education give me a classical oration, and the need to address things like honor, and what we're kind of up against is this like entropic homogenizing force that is ever expanding that will eat away at your history, and he wants to defend that. And it was just an excellent speech. I mean, all of them were very good, but I think my favorite one, though, is sort of just, it's not meant to be petty, but I liked how Auron's speech was introduced as like, I have a disagreement with someone, and I have the slides to prove my point, which was quite a delight to see, like an old-fashioned, like, here's why you're wrong, and I have the slides to prove it.
I've brought my slide deck. I'm ready I have the receipts. Yeah. No, well, that's one of the reasons also I really like Bagby's, because like you said, in some ways, Bagby and I were having a similar discussion. We were both talking about a similar topic. I was talking about it from kind of the mechanical, power analysis, political theory side, but he really brought that dynamic, classicist, understanding. He grounded it in something that was very meaningful and soulful, and just brought a real life to it that I thought was really compelling. And you're right. That's one that will be great. For those who don't know, there's a event book after that has all of the speeches, so that you can reread them, you can go over them and everything. And you're right, that one's going to profit the most from it because he had all the references. He was weaving it all together from all these classics, and it was really compelling. Another $10. Thank you very much, sir. On a personal note, it was very touching last year to receive a call at 3 a.m. from all you chaps encouraging me while I was stuck in Belgium, and I hope I reflected that friendly demeanor this year. Yeah, like I said, there was, again, I wasn't there last year the way that Red Hawk and Prudentialist were, but I felt that I could feel how many people had grown close together. You could feel the friendships that had developed. Obviously, a marriage, like there, you could just feel how much the community had been built by the last one. Even though I was new, I could still just tell from the way people are interacting how much it meant to them to see everyone again, to once again see their friends in person and get to share their lives with each other the year in between. You could just have that energy the whole time.
Yeah, and again, whether it be the camaraderie of drinks and cigars after the speeches, or just feedback, and writing notes and taking care of what everyone is wanting to accomplish in their lives, like you will make friends that last a lifetime there.
Yeah, I think the other thing to mention as well is the excellent Q&As that would occur at the end of every single talk. All the questions were very topical, very on point. Again, everyone having something to say and not just the content creators. So there was, particularly after Mr. Brooks's speech, the Q&A after that was probably the best one on the entire event. It was almost like each question from the audience was playing off of the previous question before. And it's almost like people are figuring out ideas literally in real time.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, you during many of these Q&As, you could see ideas forming. You could see each person realizing something and adding the next question, putting the next brick in the building, kind of in real time. You were almost workshopping these ideas and expanding them on the fly as you were going. Which again is something. Obviously, it's great to have these chats, to have your questions on these live streams and things. But there's always that extra magic of kind of doing it in real life. And then as soon as the great thing is, as soon as you got out of the Q&A session, everyone just immediately broke off and started having another smaller, tighter version of the Q&A on the same topic. Those discussions didn't end as soon as the talk was over. People were talking about those subjects and expanding them for hours afterwards in small groups and working on those things further.
Indeed, and any disagreements are absolutely held in good faith as well, which is extremely refreshing, especially coming from right-wing Twitter, where it seems like any, disagreement is just amplified ad infinitum. So it's very nice to just be in person, put faces to names, and everyone just understands, yeah, we're all here, we're here, and we're serious. And, again, any disagreement is in wonderful good faith, which is so refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, it's a lot easier to have productive, good faith conversations when you're across the table from somebody, rather than getting, snarky, misunderstood messages back and forth on Twitter. It's just an entirely different environment. Merrick here for $5. I'm a humble Weaver organizer who attended the event, and I met other Weaver organizers and had an extremely productive conversation. Yeah, no, man. Like I said, those are, again, what I love about this event was how not creator focused it was. Yeah, a number of the speakers were content creators because that's who that's kind of the forward facing part of the thing. But there are so many people who are essential parts of this. Again, lawyers and businessmen, people who are handling the social aspect. Again, so many people are isolated. So many people have a hard time finding a good friend group, finding like-minded people, having the ability to build community. And so those Weaver organizers are essential links in the chain. Without those, you're never going to get events like this, because those Weaver organizers are putting together those communities that then develop into these conferences that create those opportunities, hopefully end up turning into old Glory Club chapters and those kind of things. And I'm so glad that even for people who have these different roles, they're getting together with other people who are doing the same thing, and they're learning lessons. They're building skill sets. So it's not just content creators talking about ideas somewhere in a corner. All these different people who are doing essential parts and essential skill building, essential community building, are also able to network, get the best ideas, learn from each other, build with each other. I think that's just really amazing.
Like, I get the point that like everything is political, but I mean, there's a lot that can be said about having a cadre of people that aren't doing necessarily explicitly political things, but like they meet and they work on trades, or they work together on teaching like their kids automotive mechanics or things like that. Like, you want to be the type of people that can pass down skills that are going to be slashed by education budgets when it comes to things like prioritizing diversity. I mean, this is the things that we've seen throughout the history of like the US education system with universities. Like, when they want to focus on, say, like diversity, like what cut, like, well, the classics get cut, automotive stuff gets cut, languages get cut. So like, if you have these skill sets, it is important when we say basket weaving to meet up IRL, to meet up in the real world, and to organize things, to say like, well, we're going to do this, we're going to work on cars, or we're going to work on a hiking trip, or getting like losing weight, things that are going to be genuinely necessary when things are looking worse politically, that you have people that you can rely on and that you can set an example in your own neighborhood as well.
Looks like we have Charlemagne. He came in. I didn't know if he was going to make it, but great to have you, sir.
Yes, well, I'm still in Tennessee, so I figured I might as well join.
still trapped there.
Yep. Yeah, one of those things where the gate just stops bothering to show your flight information because it's gone that wrong.
Yeah, there's quite a mess with the, again, I know a number of people who had a full day delay coming or going with the flights and everything. So sorry you're stuck there, but of course happy to have you for sure. Do you feel like there was a particular speech or a particular aspect of the conference that you thought was a big growth or that really hit you this year?
Well, definitely Mr. Bagby's speech hit the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked how he narrated a very specific example of the sort of Maoist indoctrination that's deeply seated in everyone at work, and it was very illustrative. I think even more than Ryan Turnipseed's case with the Lutheran Church, just how deeply ingrained the Maoist political correctness is in people. Like at a school, there was no one really persecuting it. It was sort of entirely self-inflicted wounds, which I think makes his case very interesting because there was really zero political pressure there. They could have just ignored that Rod Dreher article, but chose not to.
Yeah, I think everybody really felt that was a very powerful speech and brought in, like you said, very different. It came from that had that classical background weaved in. It had very important themes. It also highlighted very specific and interesting cases and problems like you're talking about there. So I think for a lot of people, that Bagby speech was a real standout.
Yeah, I think the other thing about this as well is that the speakers for their speeches were not, coordinating beforehand what they were going to talk about, yet many of the speeches just naturally flowed together very, very well, which tells you there's a lot of convergent, information going on here. So a lot of people coming from very diverse backgrounds are all still united under what we were talking about, forging a common foundation. And Charlemagne, your speech had some crossovers with Bagby's, who also had some crossovers with Mr. Brooks, so it was very interesting how people are all coming to the same conclusions from many different angles.
Absolutely. Let's see here. We've got Zhang Wei for $5. I can afford a ticket for next year now that I'm selling AI generated nudes of Harry Sisson and Peter Thiel. Easy money, boys. Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, they're not the cheapest tickets for sure. It's definitely an investment. But I assure you, no one is pocketing things there. It's a very nice conference in a good venue. Everything that's being spent there is being put back into the event. It's certainly a commitment for sure. I understand that not everyone can do it, but for those that can, I think they really felt it was well worth their time.
Yeah, that way it was an investment in and of itself, and this isn't something where the event organizers are like sitting in their Scrooge McDuck vault full of cash, grifting off these like content creators and people that want to hear speeches. They pretty much more or less broke even, and I mean that's kind of how the way these things go. And the venue was wonderful, the location was wonderful, the staff was excellent, the food was great. Like, you really did get your money's worth in that respect. But good luck with your fundraising activities. I'm sure that only illustrates how bad things have gotten with our current political class.
Well, also with the the added price, it ups the barrier to entry, so everyone there is very serious. And also, I'm sure you guys witnessed this. Everyone passed the physiognomy test with flying colors, which is very, very nice.
Yeah, very true. All right, Chase here for $20. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Hi, Auron. Could you clarify your reference to true believers in contrast with Mr. Bagby's reference to administrators applying DEI woke policy, yet they did not actually understand the depths of the ideology? Thanks. No, that's a really good question, and it kind of touches on what Charlemagne was just saying, kind of with how interesting it is how his story played out. So I think the big difference here that you're looking at is when I was giving my speech, I was talking about people who are completely on board and bought in. They are the true managerial elite, those who are who are originating or actively enforcing with great gusto these things at a corporate level or at a government level. Bagby was talking about how even a classical Christian school is infected by this. So they ostensibly, guys like Rob Dreher oppose this stuff, right? In theory, they oppose the wokeness. These it's now a cottage industry on the right. I'm against the wokeness, but it turns out they're not really against the wokeness. In fact, they have onboarded many of their kind of social standards and kind of many of their ideological points, but without really understanding them. And so they kind of reflexively felt the need to cancel somebody like Mr. Bagby, who had done nothing wrong and was an excellent employee, but they still felt compelled to make these actions just because that's the zeitgeist, right? Like once an accusation has been made, once somebody has been sullied, it really doesn't matter if you understand the ramifications of what you're talking about or what you mean. You still just need to apply it because it kind of that's what you do. That's how you prove you're one of the good ones. And so I don't think that most of the people who probably were involved in that classical Christian school were true believers in the woke. That wasn't who I was talking about when I was talking about true believers. I was talking about the kind of the direct enforcers, those who were completely bought into the managerial ideology in things like corporations, universities, as opposed to Bagby, who was talking more about these people who are kind of peripherally connected to it and felt the social pressure of it, even though they're in an organization that theoretically is actively organized to stop this kind of Maoist infiltration. And they failed even at that. But I don't know.
Oh, no. The brakes on my plane are busted, and they're repairing them. I warned you about this. I predicted this. Bio-Leninism. It's coming.
I actually had the same thing. I had my plane was broken. They had the some door was broken, and they had to go get us a new plane because they didn't have anybody to fix it. So yes, the complex systems are falling apart right before us. So all of us had a hard time returning from the conference because Bio-Leninism was in full swing.
So I was thinking about what you asked when I first came on, and one of the interesting things about the conference this year as opposed to last year is last year the speeches really set the tone for what everyone went away thinking about and pondered for the next year. But I feel like at this event, while we had very interesting speeches, I feel like everyone really understood what we were doing, the projects everyone was working on, how we were organizing, and even if there were no speeches at all, I feel like we would have all come away very much on the same page about what our aims are. And I thought that was really interesting.
My name is Natalie Wilson, Executive Director of
get the background announcement there. All right, so might want to throw that mute on there, Charlie. There you go. All right, so Roll Pepper here. See, this is a very cozy stream, guys. You're getting the most casual of all streams. So Roll Pepper here for $9.99. Thank you very much, sir. I've let the fear keep me from events like this and basket weaving. But to be there and to find no horde of protesters, only friends discussing ideas, life, and how to move forward was liberating. Yeah, one of the great things, and Red Hawk touched on this as well. That barrier to entry, it seems high, and we're not trying to sell tickets here or anything, guys. I'm not telling anybody they need to do this, but that barrier of entry meant that the people there were serious. And that everyone there was on the same page this isn't the kind of event that attracts bad attention, because everyone there knows what they're doing and they're there with a purpose. They're there to build community. And so I think it can help to kind of eschew some of that fear of, oh, there's going to be bad actors in here, because no one can just casually walk in and start, agitating, causing problems. And if they did, everyone would immediately ostracize them, because kind of everybody there is on the same page. They know what they're there for. They're there for business. They're not there to troll. They're not there to be edgy boys. They're there to build community, get things done, and none of that is really tolerated.
Yeah, indeed. And then I don't know if you guys mentioned this before I came on, but the crowd at this year's event was slightly older than last year's. We did have, people there were Gen Xers, there were boomers, millennials, Zoomers, of course. I'd say the average age is somewhere around maybe like 28 to 32 is probably where the average age of that event was this year. It was probably a little bit earlier last year, but yeah, it's very interesting to see how, everyone is coming to the same conclusions here.
No, absolutely. We talked about the age thing earlier, but I mean, it really was this great convergence of didn't matter what part of the country you were from, and then some even traveled from outside of the U.S., from Australia. Everyone was here with the deep fascination to know, all right, we kind of all get the vibe of how bad things are. Where do we go from here? And a lot of those speeches were outlining both, political, theological, and mechanical ways to get to it.
See you in the camp. Thank you for your super chat, but I'm not putting that up there. It's referencing the Patriot Front stuff from this weekend, and I don't know what the level of validity of that is, but I don't traffic in doxes. We just don't do that here. Whether we think that was kind of a fake thing or not, I'm never putting out someone's information like that. That's just not how we do things here. So I understand kind of your point there, but we're just not going to be publicizing that either way, because that's just not how we handle ourselves. Let's see. Had a bunch of other chats here. Got through all the Raging Mandrill. It was good to see you, sir. See you in the chats there. Mr. Santa Claus, haven't seen you in a while, man. Great to have the big man back. Let's see. All right, I think we got through all the super chats there, and we are over the hour. I don't want to go too late, because I know everybody's recovering from their plane flights or their drives, or some are still stranded in the airport. So I don't want to keep everybody too long. But is there anything that we didn't touch on that anyone wanted to talk about? Any kind of points they didn't want to get to that they wanted to wrap up before we kind of end the stream?
I think the thing that I want to address is the panel show from the Old Glory Club. We did a fantastic showing at the event here, and announcing our ideas to start up many chapters throughout the entire country. So definitely watch this space. Check out the Old Glory Club, and if you're interested in starting up a fraternal chapter in a city near you, definitely look into us. We've got big plans coming.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people were very excited about the kind of the Old Glory Club and its birth and kind of what it's going to be doing. I think that was a big point for everybody, and that panel was very fun. So that was definitely good as well. We got one more chat here. Let me grab that. Life of Brian here for $4.99. Thank you very much. True believers come in two types, in my opinion: good girls who just follow and enforce received wisdom, whatever it is, and the real biter, nasty Bolshevik commissars. Yeah, no, I mean, that's absolutely true. The inside of that, there is that dynamic. Most people are just going along to get along. Most people will just kind of enforce the rules of society. They're always kind of just, and this is kind of what happens with the conservatives, right? A rule exists, and so we enforce it. Even we don't really think about where that rule came from. We don't think about whether that rule came from our enemies. We don't think about whether that rule was aimed at us. We're the rule enforcers and followers. So that is our job, no matter what the rule is. And so they'll just unthinkingly embrace frames of their enemies, rules of their enemies, punishing what should be friends. And then there are those that are the particularly nasty ones, like you said, the ones who are really running the Inquisition, who are really running the those HR departments and things, and really truly do want to destroy people and root them out. They're motivated by the nastiness and the power and the kind of the sociopathy. And so you're right to make that distinction. That's a good one. Did you have anything there, Charlemagne, before we go?
Yes, there was a lot of camaraderie this year. The first
Mhm.
event, people tended to flock to the e-celebs, but this year people tended to have much more camaraderie right off the get-go and forming their own groups and hanging out with each other rather than just sort of, forming these orbits. And I think this demonstrates the success of the event and the success of the event in tandem with basket weaving, because that's where some of the camaraderie comes from. So it's clear that these things are working, and that's why you should come to them, both the basket weaves and the event, because it is doing what it's supposed to do, and we've only just started really doing this.
Yeah, like I said, it was so encouraging. Like you said, that it's not just everybody clustered around the content creators. That there was, I often just kind of walked up to conversations and listened. Just to kind of hear what was going on, to hear where people were going. I was learning a lot, from people who aren't in the content creation sphere, who maybe I hadn't met before, but we're really talking and having interesting conversations, building interesting things. And so that was an aspect. Like I said, Charlemagne, I agree with you. That's just really great. Is how much those relationships had already been built. How many people who were outside of any kind of content creation or forward facing stuff were already bonding together and getting those things done. And the fact that you're going to have those basket weaving events, you're going to have those Old Glory clubs to kind of continue that growth, I think is really essential.
Yep,
We,
absolutely.
yeah. We've got Ben Dover here for $20. Thank you very much. You're doing the Lord's work. God bless you all. Well, thank you very much, man. Like I said, I am encouraged about how many people on how many fronts were just taking the ball and running with it, looking for new avenues to help out each other, to make things better for each other, make sure people are able to find work, to find community, just like I said, just all these things that weren't related to the stupid internet drama or arguing over one little piece of policy or whatever, but instead were about really coming together, building a brotherhood, building fraternal organizations. That warmed my heart. It was a fantastic thing to see, and because so many of these guys were in that, like you said, that kind of 28 to 32 or 33 band. It was people who are just in a phase of their life where they obviously really needed that, and those things become incredibly important. And they're in a position to take other people under their wing and to kind of benefit them. And just really good to see people very excited about their opportunity to give back and make a difference. That was really great. Sensible esocentrist here. Oh yeah, it was great meeting you too, sir. You had a good speech as well. Very well done. But sorry, 10 Canadian here. He says, I'm very glad to have met all at the event. The whole thing was fantastic. Currently enjoying solidarity with Charlie Wellbeing, waiting for my delayed flight. Yeah, sorry about that, man. That's brutal. It seems to have hit so many. The weather was not great there. It seems like the airlines are not able to keep their planes in good repair. A lot of people getting hit by that. So sorry, you are also stuck in an airport. But it was great meeting you. You had a great speech as well, and really fantastic to kind of put names with faces and everything. That was really good. All right, guys, I think we made it through all the super chats. I don't want to keep everybody here. We're running a little long, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But of course, if this is your first time here, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to get these podcasts as broadcasts, make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And if you do that, make sure that you leave a rating or a review so that it helps with the algorithm. Again, guys, really enjoyed this event. If you're excited about that, all the information with the Beowulf, Foundation and Scyldings is there. You can get involved in basket weaving. You can look into the Old Glory Club. You can look into joining these communities, adding your voice, adding your talent. Having a chance to help out others and build a community. That is all there for you. So make sure you do that. Thanks for coming by, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.